In this video, we are going to be looking at the 10-mark HTML question that will come up in your computer science exam. Your question will be presented to you on a digital answer document. So as you can see, the first part that you will see is just the basic text. So it's a draft design. Following on from that, you will be given an image as to how the design was improved using the HTML tags you have learned in lessons. So you've got the example here. Below that is some further important information, such as the name of the image that you need to use, the name you need to set your title to, as well as how to save your document eventually. So let's have a look at actually designing the website first. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to notice is that this section here is indented or centered. So let's make a note of that. So this section here is all centered. You have a main heading up here. So you've got heading. You've got a subheading, which is bold and underlined. You have your image. Now we've already learned that the image is called firewall.jpg. So firewall.jpg, just so that we don't forget. Below the image, everything is now no longer centered. So this comes out of the centering. But you have a list. Okay, and we've noticed that the list starts with bullet points and not numbers, so therefore it is an unordered list. So we can say unordered list. Okay. We need to check the paragraphs. Now we know that above a list it will always create some white space, so we need to look at the other white spaces. We've got white space here, white space here, white space here. Which means that this section here, this one, and this one can be set as new paragraphs. Here we have a link, and we can see that the text for the link is www.cybersecuritybriefing.co.uk. We will need to change that into the URL inside the actual link itself. Now let's have a quick look at the other instructions that we were given. We were told that we should have a title, so it's not a heading but a title, which will go at the top here of cybersecurity, and we need to save the file as final advert.txt. Okay, so there is our basic plan for our website. I'm going to pop this over to this side and we can now start with our designing. Okay. So when we design our website, the first thing we're going to need to do is make sure that we do tell the system that it is HTML. At the end of the day, that is what we're designing in. So we need to do our HTML tag. And at this point, I would suggest that any time you open a tag, you make sure that you close it straight away. The reason is because If they are marking tags in the exam, you will only get the marks if you have both the opening and the closing tags. If you're missing one, you will lose that mark. Now, as I said, we are using Notepad++. Now, to make sure that I can check my website works and to use the other built-in features of Notepad++, I'm going to temporarily save my program as a HTML file. Okay, so I'm going to choose Hypertext Markup Language File. What this does is it puts it into a nice format where I can click on a tag and it will automatically highlight the closing tag that goes with it. That's a nice way for me to be able to check that I have definitely opened and closed all my tags. So let's have a look now at doing that title. That title sits in the top section of my HTML document. So it's like in the header, okay? So I'm going to create a head tag, and as I said earlier, anytime you open one, you need to make sure that you close it. Now, inside my head tag is where my title tag is going to go. So we've got title, and we said it needed to say cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, and we'll close that tag. Okay, now you can see I'm indenting. You don't need to indent, it's not essential, but for me I find that just makes things look a little bit clearer, a little bit neater, and it helps me keep track of my opening and closing tags. So now if we have a look, I have my opening and closing HTML tags, I have my opening and closing head tags, and I have my opening and closing title tags. The rest of this website appears in the body of the website. So we now need to we've closed the head tag, we now need to open the body tag. Okay, and again, if we're opening it, we're going to close it. Make it all nice and neat. And there we go. Now everything else is going to sit within this body tag. Now it did say earlier that you can copy and paste the text from the actual document, so we're going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, which saves us having to type it all out. Okay. I like keeping everything nicely indented, so we will work with that from there. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to create this heading. Headings can be formatted in lots of different ways, but the most accepted one is the H1 tag. So if we pop in the H1 tag there and then close it. Okay. So now I know that that is set up in heading 1. It's going to be bold and it's going to be bigger than all the other text. I can save that and I can run that in Chrome to test it. So we can see now that that is nicely larger and bigger than everything else. Okay. The next line here is bold and underlined. Now there is some white space between here, so we could open that up into a new paragraph. We're going to make it bold and we're going to make it underlined because that satisfies all the needs of that. Now when it comes to closing these tags, you need to remember to close them in the reverse order that you opened them. So if you opened underlined last, that's the first one you need to close. Followed then by the bold, followed by the paragraph. Okay, so that's those ones done. Let's indent that and keep that nice and neat as well, and save and check that again. Okay, so now we have a bold cybersecurity briefing and a bold subtitle. Right, the next thing is the image. Now we were told that the image was firewall.jpg, So all we need to do at this point is put in the source code or the tags for the image. So image tag is your image, and then it's src for source equals open speech marks, and then we can pop in the name of our image. And close. Now image is also the only tag that doesn't officially need closing. Okay, if I save that, and I can double check it again. And there we go. Okay. As you can see, the next line, because there is no formatting yet, has just joined in at the end there. But what we want to do is we want this to be centered so that it reflects this lot being centered here. Okay, so to do that, we go to the top where we want the centering to happen, and we type in the tag for center, and where we want the center to end, we close the tag for center. Okay, save that again and just double check and see that that is what it's done. Fantastic. So based on my design, I can now quite happily say that I have done that bit, I've done that bit, done that bit, done that bit, and I've done that bit. So my design is coming on nice and neatly there. The next thing I'm going to do is add in these paragraph tags. Okay. So our first paragraph is going to start at here, and I want to end it after hacker. Okay, which means that my next one is going to start at all, and it's going to end after security. Okay, following on from that, we've got this line. So from click all the way through to the end of more, and the final one is where this link is. We'll do that. Okay, so now what I've got is I've got a range of different paragraphs, so I can cross those out. So paragraph, 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 paragraph. Those are done. Okay, the next thing I want to do is this unordered list. Okay, this unordered list is these 3 lines here. So to make this nice and neat and keep in with our neatness, oops, I'm going to just tab these in, and I'm going to bring this paragraph to the bottom there. Okay, so now my list is going to go here. So we want an unordered list, which the code for that is UL, and I'm going to, at the end of that, add in my closing tag for UL. Okay, it is essential, again, that you make sure you have all your opening and closing tags. If you miss any of the 8 tags that's going to go in this list, you will miss the points awarded to that. So this is a list item, so we need to make sure that we identify each individual item on this list as a list item. Okay, so now we have, as you can see, we've got 1, 2 UL ones, and we have got each individual list item is identified. So if I save that and I double check that, we now have paragraphs and we have a list. The website's very much now starting to look like the one on the example. So if we click between the 2 there, you can see is starting to resemble that quite well. Okay, now the last thing that we need to do is that link. Well, the last thing on coding that we need to do is that link. Let's get rid of the unordered list because we've done that, and now we're left with the link. Now the link is really quite important because it has three different elements. You have the text that gets clicked on, but then you have the coding to make sure that that text works as a link correctly. So we start off with our anchor, so A. We've then got the href, which is your hypertext reference, and we start off with the speech marks. Now it would be very easy at this point to just pop that straight in as www. But that's not a URL in its completion. A URL has to have the hypertext protocol link to its beginning. So http:// turns that into a proper link. Okay. Without that on the internet, a link would not work. Okay. So if I close that, and then copy this piece of text, pop that in there as the clickable link, and close the anchor as well. Okay, so let's pop that there. So now what I have is I have my anchor opened, my hypertext reference, the full URL with the HTTP, the clickable text, and the closing of the anchor. All of this text can be indented to make it look nice, and that is pretty much our website. So if I come onto here now, I can scratch that. Okay, so let's just save it and check it before we save it in the format that has been asked. Okay, and there you have it. You have this centered. Let's compare it to the original. Okay, we've got bold and middle. We've got a subsection here which is bold and underlined and also centered. I have an image which is centered. Next, I have some paragraphs. I have your here speakers on a range of topics. I have these 3 items in a list. All of the above in modern, etc., etc. We've got here. Now I know that it skips onto different lines here, but you don't need to worry about that because that is based on the size of the screen. So if the screen was smaller, it would move. You don't need to add in breakpoints to add that, to change that. You then have the next section, which is about clicking here, and then we have a workable link. So that is your entire website completed. If we look at that now in terms of the mark scheme. Okay. So let's bring our code back up because the mark scheme looks at the code, not the final. Before we do that, we do need to save it as well. So File, Save As, and the plan said final advert.txt. So change the name here to final advert dot, we don't need to put the .txt because we're going to go and find that in here. Can't find the text file now for looking. There it is. Nope, it's not quite that one. keep looking through until we find the text file. There it is, normal text file right at the top. Okay, so finaladvert.txt. There we go, we've done this final step here as well, and that is the exam paper done. Okay, let's compare this then to the mark scheme. So as we can see, the mark scheme is very explicit. 1 mark for each correct pair in the correct location. Okay, so it's important that not only are they in the correct place, but they are also a correct pair. So you've got H1s there, you've got centers, bold. They will accept paragraph without being closed, but it's good practice to close it anyway. When it comes to the link, the URL needs to be the HTTP. So you've got your initial URL, so the ahref here, you need both the opening and the closing, but you also get mark for having the HTTP. If you haven't used the H1 tag, they will accept some alternatives, but I'd say it's good practice just to stick to the H1 tag. It saves any errors, and it does not want any additional CSS to be used for the, okay, yeah, the internal HTML, but not CSS. So you can use style, but don't use it if you don't have to. So let's have a quick look. Starting here, if I just go, okay, I can get rid of that one now. Do this so I can write on it. That's better. Okay, so let's have a look at this then. The first one we're looking for is the head tags. So in terms of our coding, we've got the head tag there and the closing head tag there. So we would get 1 mark for that. We're then looking for the title tags. Now, just so that you know, if you closed your head tag down here by your body, you would not get that point because it's not in the correct place. And as it said in the mark scheme, they need to be in pairs in the correct location. So if you close them in the incorrect location, you wouldn't get the point. It needs to be, the head needs to be closed before the body is opened. Okay, so the next one is our title tag, which is that one and that one. So we would get another mark for that. The next one that we're going to be looking for is the body tags. Okay, and again, it's about them being in the correct location. So we can see here that we've got body has started where the head tag is closed, and it has closed before the HTML is closed. So it's in the correct order. So we get another point for that. Okay, the next one we're looking for is center. Now we've said that we needed this middle section here centered, and that's what it wants to see. It wants to see the opening center tag above the H1, and it wants to see the closing center tag below the image. So if we look at that, we can see the opening one there and the closing one just below the image. So that would give us our 4th point. Next, we're looking at the H1. Now, it did say we could use alternatives, but obviously marker is initially going to be looking for your H1 tag. So we've got that one there, and that one there around cyber security briefing, giving us our 5th point. Right, so we've done that one, we've done that one, we've done that one, we've done that one, we've done that one. We're now on here. So we're looking at the bold. For some reason on this mark scheme they've missed out the underline, but it would normally state it needs the bold and the underline, and then for them to be closed in the correct order. So we can see here we've got bold and underline there, we've got underline and bold there, closed in the correct order, so we can give ourselves a mark for that one. The next one is our image. So we've got image source done in the correct way. So it's looking for this piece of code, and we can see that it is here. So give ourselves a mark for that one too. The next bit is 1 mark for the entire list. This is why I said earlier, if you're missing even one single open or closing tag in this entire list, you would lose the mark. So you need these ones, and then you need 1, 2, 3. Okay, and that would give you the mark for that. Following on from that, we'll go on to the next page. We're so far on 8 points, and our final 2 points come from the link itself. Okay, so the first bit is for the ahref. Okay, so for the anchor and the hypertext reference, which is this section here and this one here. That would give us our 9th mark, and our final mark is to check whether or not we did the hypertext reference. So if I choose that way, okay, and that is that section there. If you did that, you would get the final mark, giving us a total of 10 marks and full marks for this particular section. Okay, so that's the walkthrough of the 10-mark HTML question. If you don't overcomplicate it, it can be quite simple. Make sure you remember your opening and closing tags, because majority of these marks come from both of those. Remember to close tags in the reverse order to what you opened them in. And if you're doing lists, get your unordered lists and your list items in the correct order. Okay, good luck guys, and continue revising.